Hi, welcome to Mindful. My name is Jeff, and I am here with Jeff.
Two Jeff Joneses.
Yeah, that's right. And today we are talking about the idea of the secret of contentment, what it means to be content. And when I think about contentment, I don't know, but a common way people seem to try to express this is through phrases like, it is what it is, or it could be worse, right?
Right.
Are there any other phrases, I don't know, that you think about people come up with? But
Yeah, what are you going to do or whatever?
yeah. What are you going to do? That's a great one. It's just kind of like
yeah.
this, I don't know, maybe trick your mind into thinking
Yeah,
it's fine.
right.
It's fine. But I don't know. That doesn't feel like what contentment is it?
Yeah, so the New Testament, Paul, who was the key Christian leader of that era and wrote a lot of the New Testament when he was in a really bad situation. He was in prison, awaiting trial before Caesar that could very possible that he would be sentenced to death. So not in ideal circumstances. But he talks about, hey, I'm good. Um, because I've learned the secret of being content. So he had to learn it. It wasn't like he knew it, or none of us know it.
Yes.
We're not born knowing it. But as he related to Jesus over time, he had learned the secret of contentment. And well, what is that? And it's not better circumstances or more money or the next thing that I want, and then I'll be content, because none of that ever works, right? There's always something else better,
Yes.
But he had learned in whatever circumstance, good or bad, in need or in plenty, to be content, the secret of contentment. So then you think, well, and then he doesn't even spell it out.
Right.
Like he doesn't say, well, and let me tell you.
Yeah.
He illustrates it, but he doesn't just say it.
Yes.
And which is like, well, would you just say it? But he does illustrate it through the whole book.
Right.
And that is, no matter what he's going through, it's not about acting like it's okay when it's not okay. It's not about just settling or being apathetic or just saying, well, what are you going to do? Or it's no big deal, or I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. It's not just that. It's looking for him. It was looking for Jesus in whatever circumstance he was in, and his purpose in whatever circumstance. Because when you're focused on that, then your circumstances don't really matter if that's your real focus. Because sometimes even the worst circumstances are where you can find the greatest purpose and growth and change, and where you find Jesus the closest, right? And his strength and all that. And so he's like, so whatever, whether it's in good times or bad, if you're focused on Jesus and his purposes, then it's like you can be sort of unflappable, because you're just, that's what's driving you. That's what you're looking for. And it's that desire we have for more is a good thing, but you realize, well, where I find it is in relationship with God, is with Jesus. And so in whatever circumstances, I can find that if I look for it.
Which is like, I love kind of one of the things you said right away, which connecting some dots that I appreciate, is this idea of learning. Like, you learn through failure.
Yeah.
And so probably, or at least I can say for me, there are moments where I have not felt content, and it's like, how do I replace this bad with good? How do I get rid of this whatever? If I just had more good, more money, bigger house, better car, whatever, like the good, then I could be content. But you kind of have to learn, hey, that doesn't work, right? And then same thing, you talked about purpose. Like, you don't just wake up one day and you kind of learn your purpose. So it's this, I guess I imagine if I'm watching this, I'm going, oh, like I'm not a dummy, or I haven't missed it all my life. Like, I just need to keep growing my understanding, or give myself some grace that this is a learned thing.
Yeah, and you go through stuff over time a certain way, and you realize, wow, Jesus is actually in this.
Yeah, right.
And so Paul says, this is the passage where he says, maybe the second most well-known Bible verse, John 3:16 is maybe the most well-known, God so loved the world, he gave his only son. But then Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, the Steph Curry, Tim Tebow verse. And I can do all things through Christ. But it's not just a catch-all for whatever you want to do. God's obligated to make you successful, because I can do all things through Christ, it's in the context of learning to be content, and being able to be content is finding strength in times where it's really difficult. But when you do that and you realize, hey, Jesus is here and his strength is available, and I may not like this, and I hope my circumstance change if they're bad circumstances, and that's okay to want to change them. But in the middle of them, to realize, no, Jesus in his purpose is here, and his strength is here, and therefore I can be okay.
Yes.
Circumstance may not be okay at all.
Right.
I don't want it to be this way anymore.
Yes.
But I can be okay no matter what. But that I think you can only learn that having gone through stuff and sensing the presence and strength of Christ, and seeing the purposes of God at work.
Yes.
And looking for that, and then you realize, and that's why, without exception, the godliest people I know who are older, godly people that have related to God for a long time and are the kind of people I want to be like, this is one of those traits that they all share. Now, that's just my experience. I made a list when I was preparing, for this, of all the people I know. And that was one of the things, is they were, not that they didn't struggle, not that they didn't grieve, not that they didn't try to better their bad circumstances. All that's normal. But with all that, they just have this peace and joy no matter what's going on, even if it doesn't make any sense, even if it's really difficult and you think, I don't get it, I don't like it. But there's a trust and a simplicity of joy and peace that makes no sense that they have anyway. And it's real, it's not fake.
Yes.
And it's rich because they've learned that God is in everything.
Yes.
And they know how to find him in it.
It feels like, or it seems like being content is kind of, I won't say synonymous, but you can't really be content without being fully present. Like, it's being in the hard circumstance and, holding kind of the hard circumstance and acknowledging that God's with you,
Right.
Which is interesting, because I think when it comes to this idea of content, oftentimes we think forward. The things we've talked about already, but the things we don't have. Like, if I had, future Jeff would be content if he had a car. Let me strive and be ambitious and work for the car so that I'd be content. Right. But content isn't really a future state. It's a present state, right? I mean, that'd be a fair way to look at it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and so I love this idea. No matter what happens, being with Jesus, and like you said, when these people are in these difficult circumstances and they can find, they radiate this peace or this sense of contentment, it's because they're present with Jesus in the present.
Yeah, and a lot of us know somebody like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we all think, man, I would love to be like that. And we can be.
Yes.
But it does mean learning it and walking with God over a period of time where you actually begin to settle your soul and you realize, oh, there's a bigger reality. There's a deeper thing going on here than just good or bad circumstances.
Yes.
And I think that's where we all want to get to, and we can, if we choose to go through those a certain way.
Yeah, I love that. So that was going to be kind of my next question, is how do we build that muscle? So talking about settling your soul, kind of taking an inventory of what is in your life. I've heard you talk about growing your understanding of kind of the story that God is writing. Any other suggestions or thoughts to just help us?
What you said is great. And I think just the discipline of looking for God's presence, looking for his hand, looking for his strength in whatever I'm going through is actually more important than what I'm going through or changing what I'm going through.
Man, that's great. Yeah.
And so if I can, that's got to be my focus. And so if I can just say, hey, I would love for that to change. Like, I wish, let's say somebody's marriage is falling apart. I wish it wasn't. And I'm going to do some things, whatever I can do to avoid that. But while this is happening, I want to find God's strength in this. I want to find his hand in this. And that's really even a bigger opportunity than changing the circumstance.
Yes.
And so it's just what your focus is. And that's what Paul was able to do in prison. He was able to see that bigger thing.
Yes.
So it didn't matter if he gets out or not, or if he gets killed or not, or because he's looking for something bigger than that.
Yeah. I've heard you tell a story about a professor who talked about living the adventure.
Yeah, the great adventure.
Yeah, and it's just this curiosity of like, I wouldn't have chosen this. This isn't what I want.
Yeah.
But I think God has something for me in this, or we'll just move forward. So Man, I love that. That connects with me. So, well, thank you for talking about the secret of being
Jeff
content.
Jones. Yeah.
It's always great to be here. I appreciate just this idea of learning, having to learn it, that it's not something we're born with, but that we observe in others, and we can give ourselves grace and grow in it. And so hopefully by practicing some of these things, being present with God and taking an inventory and just maybe rising above the conflict, we can find him in it. So thank you guys for tuning in. We hope to see you next week. If you're in the DFW area, there's information below about how you can come visit us at Chase Oaks. If we don't see you here, we would love to see you next week at Mindful. Thanks.